run. J.E. hitting from 60. Fletcher C in that D-line, that's what you don't want to see. Ertz catching tubs, foes on another level. The Super Bowl ain't the only time you see that Philly special. We live from Broad Street, brotherly loves the heartbeat. Hungry dogs run faster and we don't eat cheap. No one likes us and we don't care, cause we from Philly and we ain't never scared. Look up.
But I just gotta know one thing. Are you ready? No! I said, are you ready?
We set out on a journey this season, right? We had some goals. We didn't meet some of them, but one of them was always get in the tournament. Always get in and let's see what happens, okay? Because this team, we are not done yet.
Hey, like we said before the game, man, we ain't sneaking in. We kicked the door down. You know what I mean? We in this party. Nobody wanted us in, but guess what? They got to deal with us now, man. Keep your mind right, man. Keep playing as a family. Keep fighting. Keep having fun, all right? Family of three. 1, 2, 3. Bam!
Here we go. Welcome, boys and girls, to a very special wild card playoff edition of the 4th and JAWN Show, episode number 84. Guess what, boys and girls? We made it. We made it. We're in the dance, baby. I don't know how the hell we made the playoffs. I mean, I know how we made it. I was there to see it, but I still can't believe that the Philadelphia Eagles backdoored their way into the playoffs. I feel like a new man. I feel rejuvenated. I feel reinvigorated. I feel re-energized because I'll be honest with the listeners at home. Gail and I have had conversations in private outside of this studio. In fact, everybody in this studio I've had conversations with saying this. This season has been a mentally, physically, let alone financially draining season. And if you're a diehard Eagles fan like I am, like I know all of you listening are, you dump your heart, you dump your soul into this team. So it has been mentally draining. Look, it's one thing to lose a game if you have a good team. All right? Let's say you're the New Orleans Saints and you drop a dud against the Dallas Cowboys. All's well. You can brush that off. You've got the number 1 seed. You're still steamrolling and curb stomping teams. It's all fine. Takes the sting out of the loss. If you have a bad team, like let's say, I don't know, the New York Giants, you lose a game, you blow. You stink. You know you're going to lose the game. You don't go into any of these games expecting to win.
Yes, you did.
But with the Philadelphia Eagles, it has been such an up and down season, up and down, wins and losses, great wins, heartbreaking losses, and I feel like a new man. I feel reinvigorated. I feel like a weight is lifted off my shoulders because...
And my fuse is lit!
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter anymore. You're in the playoffs. You're 0-0. So is everybody else. The fact that we lost an overtime game against the Tennessee Titans or blew that lead against the Carolina Panthers doesn't matter. The fact that we dusted off the Philly special on the season opening night to beat the Atlanta Falcons doesn't matter. The fact that we won in LA doesn't matter. The fact that we got our butts handed to us on a gold and black platter down in New Orleans doesn't matter. None of it matters because you're in the dance. Everybody's 0-0, and this is a game of matchups. Now, let's play, let's play hypotheticals here. If the Eagles were to actually pull this off, I don't want to get ahead of myself because we could just as easily be in here next week having a completely different conversation, and this new man attitude that I have right now could go right out the window. But let's play the hypothetical game. Let's say that the Eagles were actually able to pull this off, being in the dance, and get their way to the Super Bowl. That in and of itself, believe it or not, would be more impressive than winning the Super Bowl last year. Because if you think about where this team was last year, okay, Carson Wentz goes down in LA, but they already had the division wrapped up. They were already going to the playoffs. All Nick Foles had to do in the last 3 games of the season was beat really 3 cookie-cutter teams. with a first-round bye on the line and then home field advantage throughout. Who'd you have to go through? You had to go through the New York Giants, albeit they played you kind of tough. You had to go through the Oakland Raiders and then a meaningless game against the Dallas Cowboys. This was tougher. This was more miraculous because you had to go out and beat the number 2 seed in the NFC playoffs in the Los Angeles Rams. And then you had to beat a division leader, the AFC South, in the Houston Texans. Now the Washington Redskins are the Washington Redskins. But the fact that they even got to the playoffs, getting hot at the right time, is miraculous. And then last year, you had that first round bye and then 2 home games. Now you're on the road. Now you have to play 3 games. But when I say that this is a 0-0 season now, and it's a season of matchups, one of the other things that is so important when going to the postseason for any football team is how hot are you? And the Eagles right now, after winning the last 3 games, are piping hot. I can no longer use words like impossible and can't with this team. Not with what they pulled off last year, and not with what they pulled off this year. Can't do it. I mean, if you just to talk about how hot the Philadelphia Eagles actually are under Nick Foles, led by Nick Foles, over the last 3 games, let's take a look at the offensive ranking throughout the season. They were 14th in total offense, 365 yards. In the last 3 games, they're putting up 445 yards per game. If that was projected throughout the season, they'd be number 1 in the league.
Dang, that's kind of dope.
Points per game offensively, 18th for the 2018 season at 22.9. The last 3 games, 28.67. That would be best for 4th in the league. Passing offense would have been number 1 at 336 yards. Running offense got incrementally better. They would have been ranked 19th, but you're talking about a 98-yard per game average up to a 108. This team is getting hot at the right time. And they just so happen to stumble their way into the playoffs. And you can look at the high-powered offenses of the New Orleans Saints. You can look at the talent that's surrounding the Los Angeles Rams. You can take a look at the Dallas Cowboys and saying that they're impressive and they're playing physical defense. You can say the same about this about the Seattle Seahawks. You can take a look at that Chicago Bears defense and saying, man, they're going to be tough to beat. I guarantee you, all those teams didn't want to see the Eagles in the playoffs because you can no longer use the word can't. You can no longer use the word impossible because when this team is playing with confidence, when this team is playing with swagger, and most importantly, when this team is playing with Nick Foles, nothing, absolutely nothing is impossible.
Hey, tell me how good this feels right now.
Absolutely. Evan Hollywood Hearn, how are you doing this evening?
Yes, E. I wish I could come to you with the same energy right now, but I've got some repenting to do.
Okay.
I would like to take this time to apologize to the city of Philadelphia. I, Evan Hearn, even after witnessing the greatest underdog story of all time playing out last year, had written this team off after the Saints blowout. I thought the season was over. I really did. I was looking at what our defense looks like in the backfield that we have. I was looking at the trajectory of our offense, and I wasn't feeling confident heading into the rest of the season. I thought this season was going to end up being a wash. But to touch on something that you said, E, I completely agree with you in that if the Eagles can find a way to get to the Super Bowl, it would be even more impressive than winning it last year. Because, like you said, we had the first round bye. We already had a playoff spot locked up last year. Nick Foles really needed to dig deep, as did the rest of these defensive guys who we didn't even know their names at the beginning of the year. Everybody dug deep and really impressed me for the end of the season. This Eagles team has looked like a completely different team over the past month. They're playing with a different energy, and it's hard to ignore what's glaring us in the face in that ever since Nick Foles has taken over the reins of this team, they've been playing completely different. This team seems to fight better when they're backed into a corner, I've noticed.
Absolutely.
And I just, it was crazy for me to witness what I've witnessed over the past few weeks and watching their complete resurgence of this Eagles. But I want to know from you, what was it like down in Washington being able to watch the Eagles And not to mention the fact, let's touch on the fact that you guys completely outnumbered Washington's own fans. I mean, you guys were in the concourse doing chants. Tell me about it.
Oh, you know what? In every season, you're lucky if you walk away with a handful of memorable moments. You're lucky in any given season if you just walk away with a few moments that you'll remember for the rest of your life. And that was definitely one of those moments that I'll remember for the rest of my life. I've never seen anything like that. First of all, FedEx Field, you've all heard out there in Radioland, you've all heard it's a dump. I can verify that it's worse than you think. I mean, it has all the charm of a low-budget airport. It's dirty. It's dingy. There's better soccer stadium. The Philadelphia Union have a better stadium than FedEx Field. It is absolutely a trash stadium. It needs a fresh coat of, like, you're walking up the rails.
Anything good to eat in the stadium?
No, the food is terrible. The in-game presentations are terrible. Speaking of the in-game presentations, you never. I got to tell a couple stories.
Go ahead.
Because this was just hysterical. So during one of the commercial timeouts, they have little in-game entertainment while you at home are watching commercials there. And one of them was a couple, right? And they had big old cue cards, and it was like a how well do you know your significant other,
yeah.
Something cheesy like that. Yeah. So, they asked them, okay, you wrote down on the cue card, who's your favorite Redskins player? And they both...
DJ Swearinger.
Yeah. So they both hold up a player, Ryan Kerrigan. Okay.
Right.
What was your first Redskins game watching with each other? And they both held it up. And so the announcer goes, and what will you say when he asks you to marry you? And then this Redskins fan drops to one knee and proposes to an empty stadium except for Eagles fans, proposes to his girl. Why in the world, when you're about to start a journey with your significant other for the rest of your life, would you do it at FedEx Field in a meaningless game surrounded by Eagles fans? But all that, when she said yes, they got booed. Yo, they got booed. That's terrible. Could you imagine them? Could you imagine going home being like, "Oh my God, he proposed to me," and I said yes. Oh, Betty, tell me how he did it. Tell me how he did. Well, we did it in the end zone of FedEx Field, and we got booed off the field.
We got beer thrown at us.
You know, she's just gonna end up cheating on him with some Eagles fans.
Yeah.
So dude from Philadelphia.
I would love to see the photos of the moment that happened, and like seeing the Eagles fans in the background. They're having this beautiful moment as a couple, and you just see Eagles fans with some big middle fingers right over.
Oh man, but they got booed. They got freaking booed. And then they had twice they did it. You think they would have learned the first time? Twice they did it. They had, your typical, then they do it in NBA, they do it in hockey, you like a t-shirt toss, right?
Yeah.
Who wants a t-shirt? And then you got the Redskins.
Gritty comes out.
Yeah, you got the little interns running out and throwing, these burgundy t-shirts into the crowd. Well, what do you think the crowd started to do?
Throw them back?
They threw him back. They threw him back on the field. Not once, but twice. You think they would have learned the first time. They did it twice.
They came back out after they threw them back.
What kind of entertainment are you going to have?
Oh, my goodness
So
gracious.
they're throwing these burgundy T-shirts back out on the field, and these little interns who have been told specifically never to step foot on the field. You're allowed on the sidelines, but never go on the field, are now with this panicked look on their face like, what do I do? What do I do? What do I do? And they're running and scurrying on the field trying to pick up all the T-shirts. It was hysterical. Eagles fans, I once again got to tip my hat to you. Absolutely unbelievable job once again, taking over a stadium, making your voices heard. It's easy for me to sit here and say it was a 70-30 split. And usually when
in the favor of the Eagles.
In favor of the Eagles. And usually when I'm saying stuff like that, normally it's let's say a slight exaggeration. Yeah. No, it was easily a 70-30 split, if not more. There were Eagles fans all over the place. When the Redskins got introduced, they got introduced raining down to nothing but boos. Every time the Redskins had a third down, it sounded like a home game. And then when the Redskins stopped showing...
Yeah.
During commercial break, they'll show you the out-of-town scores, the highlights. They stopped showing the Bears game because it was riling up
the
Eagles fans a little bit too much. Unbelievable experience to be there.
Tell me about the tailgate situation. Was the tailgate atmosphere equivalent to how it felt inside the stadium?
Tailgate prior to it?
Prior to the game, yeah. Was it packed with the Eagles fans, or did the Eagles fans show up when the game started?
The Redskins, they don't they don't really tailgate. I learned that last year. I was there at the first game of the season opener last year. And they opened up the lots very late, so there wasn't much of a tailgate scene. But what I will say is that after the Eagles won and after that fourth quarter was absolutely amazing. After that, we stuck around in the seats to just
soak it in.
Soak it in, but also to keep track of what was happening because the Bears-Vikings game wasn't over. I wasn't on the main concourse like you see those videos tweeted out. I wasn't there, but when I was sitting in the seats and when it was finally over, we went out to the parking lot, had trouble finding the car because we didn't know exactly where we were. We don't know the lay of the land.
Right.
All of a sudden, we start hearing this music hitting. And wherever there's music, I throw a mean tailgate. Wherever there's music, there's a party. Mm-hmm. So we go and we find the source of music. There must be 100 Eagles fans celebrating in the parking lot with a DJ, just partying their asses off that we made the playoffs.
That's awesome.
I tweeted out a couple videos of it, but I could never imagine a scenario ever, where an opposing fan base took over Lincoln Financial Field, B, where we would allow them to celebrate
in our parking lot.
Yeah. I can never imagine a scenario. Now I have respect for the Redskins fans that showed up. Mm-hmm. You had no reason to show up. You had to deal with us. You must be diehard fans because it's cold and you're miserable. You have no reason to be here, yet you showed up. But the Redskins fans were far and few in between.
That speaks to the Eagles fans' ruggedness. Because just thinking about that, thinking about walking out of the Eagles stadium after a loss, I've seen angry Eagles fans. I've seen angry, drunk Eagles fans. And to think that at the end of the season, if any other team were to be celebrating in our parking lot, like those tables wouldn't be flipped over in half a second.
Oh, there would be a riot.
Yeah.
There would be a riot.
It'd be crazy.
Now, all I can remember, right, because I've been going to the games since Veterans Stadium.
Right.
I've been around for a couple bad seasons. More specifically, let's say the last season of Andy Reid. I think we went 4-12, something like that. Last season of Chip, didn't we go like 4-12, something? It was a bad season,
6-10, I believe, yeah.
Yeah, something like that. Now, the last game of the seasons were coincidentally against the Redskins. Redskins fans still didn't show up, and I would look up at the stands, and on the upper level of the stands, it would be half empty, and it would break my heart. But I understood why Eagles fans weren't showing up. I'm going to show up. I'm diehard. This is what I live for. But I understand why they wouldn't show up. They're in essence protesting the fact that the organization has done a completely miserable job. But had there been no Eagles fans at FedEx Field, that place you couldn't even fill out the bottom bowl. You want to talk about a miserable organization with no direction, with a dump of a stadium. I wash my hands of you, Washington. Thanks for being hosts. We enjoyed our time there. We had a very memorable moment, but we are moving on.
Yes.
Unlike the Minnesota Vikings.
Oh, yes.
Oh, which, by the way, nothing pleases me more than seeing those Midwestern Levi jean wearing, mom want to talk to a manager, haircut having, just terrible, soft baby lotion, Charmin soft fans now have to go home courtesy of the Chicago Bears and the Philadelphia Eagles. It played out exactly the way I'd hoped. Kirk Cousins, your 84 million?
84 million guaranteed
quarterback throws up something like $138, and you're out of the playoffs. You got that guy to take you over the hump. He didn't even get you into the playoffs. Nothing warms my soul more on that drive home than knowing that Minnesota Vikings fans were also driving home from their home stadium.
With a sour puss on their face.
With the playoffs on the line. With their $84 million quarterback. Knowing that they'll be sitting at home on the couch, despite what you did during the regular season. Yeah, you kicked our tail. But guess what? We're in the playoffs. You're not. You're going to be sitting at home. So hello to all those Vikings fans. Hopefully that maybe a few of them are listening, that are listening on the couch at home right now. You're going to be doing the same thing when the Eagles are playing Sunday afternoon, sitting at home.
Think they're going to be rooting for the Bears?
Oof.
That's a tough one.
You know who they're going to be rooting for? I don't care. I don't care who they're rooting for. Speaking of the Bears, man, tough matchup.
Very.
That is a very tough matchup. It is going to be a physical game. The NFC games, Dallas and Seattle, Philadelphia and Chicago. You want to talk about two, very physical games. It's going to be tough. The Bears have a incredible defense. They've got a quarterback that can manage. They've got a great offensive-minded head coach. But I think there's a couple keys to victory that the Eagles can use in order to advance on to the divisional round. First of all, offensively, they have to be creative in the run game. The Bears have the number 1 ranked rushing defense. They've held 10 of 16 opponents to 50 yards or less. 5 times they've held an opponent's rusher to under 30 yards. Only allowed 2 100-yard rushers and the fewest rushing TDs in the NFL. Personally, I don't think that Josh Adams has the speed or the cut ability to really be effective in this game. Wendell Smallwood's going to get his touches. I'm not sure that he's going to be a major factor. This might be the Darren Sproles game. Yeah. This might be the Golden Tate game where all of a sudden you're starting to use some jet sweeps, some screens.
Creative, yeah.
Doug's got to be very, very, very careful not to fall into the Doug Peterson trap, which is basically abandoning the run for the sake that it's not working.
Gosh.
Gosh, he says. You can't be throwing the ball, 1, 2, 3 and outs, take 30 seconds off the clock, and put your defense back out there. You have to run the ball. You have to dedicate yourself to the run. But just understand you're going up against the league's number 1 rush defense, so you have to be a little bit creative in the runs that you use. Again, this might be the part where Darren Sproles shines, Golden Tate gets involved in some jet sweeps, and they use some creative ways to kind of misdirection. That's what you want to use. You want to use misdirection. You want to use Darren Sproles in this game because their run defense is nasty. Quick passing game, all right? You want to utilize a quick passing game. This is something that was used against the Philadelphia Eagles time and time again because Jim Schwartz relies so heavily on the front four getting home. An easy way to neutralize that front four, quick passing game. Eagles need to utilize that. Quick slants, quick screen throws. The Bears are 3rd in the NFL in sacks. So Nick Foles has to be able to read quickly and deliver the ball quickly to sort of neutralize that pass rush led by Khalil Mack. Because that is absolutely nasty. High percentage throws. But with that being said, you have to be careful with the types of throws and the types of passes that you're running. Because the Bears' defense is number 1 in the NFL in interceptions. I mean, that's what made the Bears so successful this year, is the fact that they've been able to get after the quarterback and force the quarterback into making bad mistakes. Because that defensive backfield back there, they're ball hawks. And they set that, not only do they score, then they score on defense. They score a lot of touchdowns on defense, but they also put the offense in advantageous short field positions where they're able to score points.
Their defense this year is really reminiscent of the Eagles last year.
Yes.
Just being really spontaneous with scores, taking advantage of situations, strong pass rush. That's what it sounds like. It's the Eagles of last year.
So you got to utilize your tight ends, wide receiver screens, running back screens, quick slant passes. The Bears and the Eagles both share a common theme where they're both in the top 3 in time of possession. All right, the reason why that is because their defense gets, the
3 and outs.
Yeah, 3 and outs, especially the Bears. The Bears are incredible at doing that. So you want to be able to basically extend these drives, long drives, because I don't think the Bears are going to be able to outscore you or outduel you on the offensive side of the ball.
Agreed.
What they're going to be able to do is get pressure on your quarterback, wreak havoc in the backfield, and force you into and get the ball back quickly, force you into turnovers, so that their offense can go back. The offensive line has to play the game of their lives. More so than I think any other team in the NFC playoffs. The Rams have a nasty defensive line. They prove they can do it. The Dallas Cowboys have a nasty defensive line. That hopefully maybe if the cards get played right, we'll see them down the road. New Orleans Saints, not so much. This is the nastiest defensive line you're going to go against all year. So the offensive line has to play a lights-out game. They have to play the game of the season. And let's not overlook the Trey Burton effect. All right, just like when Indianapolis came to town and Frank Reich came to town, right? They started to switch up some of the verbiage. I mean, Trey Burton kind of gets forgotten in all the conversations. The fact that this guy has played not only with Carson Wentz, but he's played with Nick Foles and found success with Nick Foles and was a major part of that Super Bowl run last year. If you don't think that Trey Burton right now is in the ears of the defensive players of the Chicago Bears and the defensive coordinator, you're fooling yourself. So you're going to have to kind of break away from some of the molds of the things that you did, the tendencies. This is going to be a big self-scouting game for Doug Peterson, making sure that he isn't like tipping his hand at things he's going to do, because Trey knows all that stuff. Switch up the verbiage, switch up the run plans, stuff like that. Make sure that you're not doing what you're putting on film on a consistent basis and tipping your hand at tendencies.
Who do you think, though, has a bigger impact on their former team? Trey Burton or Alshon Jeffrey?
I would say Trey Burton.
Really?
Yeah. Because the best friend of a quarterback is their tight end. Trey Burton's been huge for them this year.
Yeah.
I mean, the Bears aren't exactly a high-passing team. Their leading receiver is their running back, and their actual wide receiver, who has who's catching the most ball, who has the most yards, he's under 700 yards. So it's not like they're killing you through the air with their wide receivers. They're killing you through the air with the running back and Trey Burton. Trey Burton has been huge for them. Alshon Jeffrey doesn't know Nagy's offense.
True.
He doesn't know. He's too far. He's too far removed from that scenario to know any offensive tendency.
Did you happen to catch Alshon's comments earlier, though?
I did not. What did he say?
Alshon had to say for himself. I happened to see it too late, close to the show. Otherwise, I would have grabbed it. But Alshon Jeffrey said that Chicago was just a place that he worked. He loves Philadelphia.
Ooh, I like that.
Yes.
It's a little bulletin board material-ish,
I like
but I like it. He's coming home. He's coming back to the workplace.
Yeah.
But he's with the home team.
Exactly.
I'll be curious to see the split.
What do you mean?
Fan-wise.
Oh, yeah.
Fan-wise over there. Because I know there's a lot of people, 94 WIPs traveling out there, Green Legion's traveling out there. I'll be curious. I'll be curious to see the split. But defensively, getting back to keys to victory about how you beat the Chicago Bears. Keys to victory defensively, it's going to take a lot of discipline, especially on the defensive line, because they like to use a lot of misdirection. If you look at some of the Chicago Bears highlights, you will lose track of the ball very easily, because they use misdirection more than any other team and more effectively than any other team in the NFL. So lane integrity, gap integrity, and basically containing seals around so you don't let plays escape. You've got to know that where they're going with, where you think they're going with the ball isn't necessarily where they're going. They use misdirections incredibly well. If I'm Jim Schwartz, I'm selling out on the run. I'm stacking the box. I'm selling out on the run. Make Trubisky beat you. You know, this is an inexperienced quarterback. He's had success this year, but in the postseason, he doesn't know what he's doing. He doesn't know about these bright lights. He doesn't know about the pressure, not the way Nicky Foles does.
That's right.
And again, the passing game, they're not killing you with their wide receivers. It's Trey Burton, it's the running backs, it's effectively moving the ball down the field, utilizing those kind of weapons. So make Trubisky beat you. Go ahead.
I was just wondering how much we know that Nick Foles is pretty much we prefer to have him in warm weather. So do you think that the weather is going to be a factor in this game?
I don't think so. I have the weather.
It's supposed to be about 40 degrees.
Yeah, 40 degrees, which is unseasonably warm for Chicago.
Yeah.
I mean, the weather, 43 degrees. Last year against Atlanta, at home in Philadelphia, it was 38 degrees. Against the Vikings, remember, that was kind of a warm day. That was 40 degrees. It's going to be warmer in Chicago in January than it was in the postseason in Philadelphia last year. So where, like, Nick Foles struggled a little bit. Remember that we were talking about those last
Atlanta
3 games?
Yeah.
No, I'm talking about the regular season game.
Oh, okay.
Like the Giants game was kind of cold, but that Raiders game, Christmas game, and then the Dallas game, those were bitterly cold games. And Nick Foles struggled, albeit he only played one series in the Dallas game. He's not a cold weather quarterback. But it being 43 degrees, and then if they can advance, you're back in a dome scenario. You know what I mean?
Superdome.
The Superdome. But, or you're back in the Superdome, and then if you advance from there, you're either going to be in Los Angeles or in Jerry's world. So as far as the cold factor goes,
You just got to worry about Chicago.
you just got to worry about Chicago, and it's not going to be that cold. It's not going to be that cold. And lastly, key to the game on the defensive side of the ball, the sacks, they have to get home. They absolutely, positively have to get home. Because, again, they're using the short passing game to rack up the yards. They're basically do what I'm explaining the offense should do, which is quick passes, slant screens, so on and so forth. The defensive line has to play the game of their life. If they can play against the Chicago Bears the way they played against the Washington Redskins, if Michael Bennett can get home like he's been getting home, if Fletcher Cox can be disrupting things the way he does, if you can get Chris Long and Timmy Jernigan into the game plan and getting after Trubisky, I guarantee you this guy's going to crack under the pressure. He's not ready for it yet. Not the way Nick Foles is. This is a winnable. This is going to be an incredibly tough game for the Philadelphia Eagles. This is going to be a tough, grind it, knock it out game, but it's a winnable game. And again, going back to the intro, I can't use the words like impossible anymore. I can't use the words like can't anymore. Not with what I saw last year in the postseason under Nick Foles, and certainly not what I've seen this year.
Not when you back them into a corner. They accomplish unbelievable things when you back them into a corner.
The worst thing for the NFC or the remaining teams in the NFC playoffs was to see a confident, hot Philadelphia Eagles team defending the crown, feeling themselves, feeling that swagger back, led by Nick Foles, knowing they've been there. And they're playing they're playing with house money again.
Yeah.
To quote the great Kyle Brandt of Good Morning Football, this team is most dangerous when nobody believes in them. And nobody believes in them right now. Nobody believed they'd even be at this point. But just like Malcolm Jenkins said, they're not opening the door yet. They're kicking it down.
Oh, they're kicking it down.
Kicking it down.
I was going to say that Vegas